Part 1, The Distress Signal. The Impossible Transmission. Research Director Cale Vaughn had been monitoring deep space frequencies for 17 cycles without finding anything more interesting than background radiation. His species, the Thessari, prided themselves on their scientific achievements and their peaceful exploration of the cosmos. They had mapped over 3,000 star systems, catalogued 200 alien species, and never once fired a weapon in anger. So when the distress signal pierced through the void, cutting across every frequency simultaneously, Cale Vaughn nearly fell from his observation platform. The signal was wrong in every way. It used no standard protocol, followed no recognized pattern, and broadcast with enough power to damage sensitive equipment. Cale Vaughn's translator struggled with the language, spitting out fragments that made no sense. Oxygen critical, hull breach sectors 4 through 9, casualties mounting, requesting immediate assistance. But it was the final part that made Cale Vaughn's blood run cold. The transmission ended with coordinates and a single word that his translator rendered as humanity. "Director, we're receiving the signal as well," his assistant Mershaw called from across the laboratory. "Should we alert the rescue fleet?" Cale Vaughn nodded slowly, his mind already racing. Humanity. The name appeared nowhere in Thessari records. An unknown species in distress, broadcasting blindly into the void, hoping someone would hear. The Thessari took great pride in their humanitarian missions. They had saved dozens of species from extinction events, natural disasters, and technological failures. This would be no different. Or so Cale Vaughn believed. The rescue fleet arrives. The TSS Compassion was the finest rescue vessel in the Thessari fleet. 3 kilometers of advanced medical facilities, engineering workshops, and humanitarian supplies. Captain Velmar commanded a crew of 200 specialists, all trained in emergency response and first contact protocols. They arrived at the coordinates 18 hours after receiving the distress call, and what they found defied explanation. The human vessel hung in space like a broken toy. It was massive, easily 5 kilometers long, but chunks of it were simply missing. Entire sections had been torn away, leaving jagged metal edges that glowed with residual heat. Atmosphere vented from dozens of holes, creating frozen clouds that sparkled in the light of a distant star. Scans show multiple hull breaches, reported Science Officer Thalris, her voice shaking. Life support is failing in 60% of the ship. Reactor output is fluctuating dangerously. Captain, that vessel should be a debris field. Nothing could survive that level of damage. Yet we're detecting life signs, Velmar said quietly. 2,317 individuals. Still alive. The bridge fell silent. 2,000 people, surviving in a ship that looked like it had been chewed up and spit out by some cosmic predator. "Open a channel," Velmar ordered. "Let them know help has arrived." The response came immediately, and for the first time, they heard a human voice. It was male, rough with exhaustion, but carrying an edge of steel that made Velmar's skin prickle. "Thessari vessel, this is Commander Marcus Webb of the UESS Endeavour. We appreciate the response, but we've got the situation under control. We're conducting damage assessment and beginning repairs." Velmar exchanged glances with his crew. Under control? The ship was dying around them. "Commander Webb, your vessel has sustained catastrophic damage. We have medical facilities and engineering teams standing by. Please allow us to evacuate your wounded and assist with repairs." A pause. Then, negative, compassion. "We don't abandon ship unless there's no other option. We've got injured, yes, but our medical teams are handling it. We've sealed the major breaches and rerouted power to critical systems. We'll be operational within 48 hours. "Impossible," Thalris whispered. "The damage is too severe. They'd need industrial shipyards and months of work." But Velmar was watching the human ship more closely now. Through the gaps in the hull, he could see movement. Figures in bulky suits were already swarming over the exterior, wielding tools that sparked and flashed. Inside the damaged sections, emergency lights were flickering to life. Somehow, impossibly, the humans were already working. Commander Webb, Delmar said carefully, what happened to your vessel? Another pause. We encountered a hostile species. The Kresh Dominion. They ambushed us during a routine survey mission. We fought them off, but not before they did this. Fought them off. Delmar felt his translator must be malfunctioning. The Kresh Dominion was one of the most aggressive species in known space. They had destroyed 3 Thessari research stations before the Thessari had learned to simply avoid their territory. No one fought the Kresh. You ran from them or you died. Commander, we have no record of your species. This is our first contact with humanity. We would very much like to offer assistance and establish diplomatic relations. Appreciated, Captain. Tell you what, give us 48 hours to get the Endeavour patched up enough for basic flight. Then we'll be happy to talk. Right now, my people are pretty busy trying not to die. The transmission cut off. Delmar stared at the ruined ship, watching as dozens of human workers continued their impossible task of rebuilding a vessel that should have been declared a total loss. Captain, Mershaw said quietly, should we insist on providing aid? Delmar considered it. The Thessari protocols were clear. Species in distress should be assisted, whether they wanted it or not. But something about Commander Webb's voice, that absolute certainty, made him hesitate. We wait, he decided. And we watch. I want continuous scans of that vessel. I want to know how they're doing this. The impossible recovery. Over the next 48 hours, the crew of the Compassion watched in stunned silence as humanity performed what could only be described as a miracle. The humans worked in shifts, never stopping. They used welding equipment that would have been considered primitive by Thessari standards, but they wielded it with brutal efficiency. Where the Thessari would have carefully analyzed each repair, planned each step, and proceeded with caution, the humans simply attacked the problems with relentless determination. Thalris provided constant updates that grew increasingly bewildered. They're not following any safety protocols I recognize. They're working in hard vacuum for hours at a time. They're using hull plating from non-critical sections to patch critical ones. They're rerouting power in ways that should overload their systems but somehow doesn't. They're adapting, Delmar realized. They're not repairing the ship to its original specifications. They're rebuilding it to work with what they have. On the 36th hour, the Endeavour's main reactor stabilized. On the 42nd hour, primary life support came back online throughout the vessel. And exactly 48 hours after their first conversation, Commander Webb's face appeared on their view screen. He was human, clearly, though the Thessari had never seen his species before. He had dark skin marked with scars, short-cropped gray hair, and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a uniform that was stained with grease and blood, and behind him, the Endeavour's bridge showed signs of recent battle damage that had been hastily patched. Captain Velmar, Webb said, and something like a smile touched his scarred face. As promised, the Endeavour is operational. We're ready for that conversation now. Delmar could barely speak. Commander, we've been monitoring your repairs. What you've accomplished is, it should not have been possible. Webb's smile widened slightly. Captain, you're going to learn something about humanity. We specialize in doing things that shouldn't be possible. It's kind of our thing. How many crew did you lose? Delmar asked quietly, dreading the answer. With that level of damage, the casualties must have been devastating. Webb's expression sobered. 17 dead. 43 seriously wounded. They're stable now. Our doctors are good at their jobs. 17. Out of over 2,000. The Thessari would have expected hundreds of casualties, perhaps thousands. How had they saved so many? Your medical technology must be remarkably advanced, Thalris said. Not really, Webb admitted. We just refused to give up on people. Our doctors kept operating through hull breaches and power failures. We had nurses doing surgery in hard vacuum, using suit lights to see. We had engineers manually pumping air into critical medical bays when life support failed. He paused. We take care of our own, no matter what. Delmar felt something shift in his understanding. This was not just superior technology or lucky survival. This was a species that had been forged in circumstances so harsh that they had learned to thrive in conditions that would kill anyone else. Commander Webb, your species is unknown to us. We would like to establish formal contact, learn about your civilization, and offer friendship. We'd like that too, Captain. Webb's expression grew serious. But first, I need to warn you about something. The Kresh Dominion that attacked us? They're not going to be happy that we survived. They're going to come back with more ships. And when they do, they're going to find that humanity doesn't run from bullies. You intend to fight them? Delmar asked, horrified. Commander, the Kresh are one of the most dangerous species in this region. They have destroyed entire civilizations. Then they've never fought humanity, Webb said simply. Captain, I appreciate your concern, but you need to understand something. We didn't come to the stars to hide. We came to explore, to grow, to build a future. And we're not going to let anyone take that from us. As the conversation continued, Delmar realized he was not witnessing the rescue of a dying species. He was witnessing first contact with something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that treated catastrophic damage as a temporary setback, that turned disaster into opportunity, and that faced overwhelming odds with absolute determination. Humanity had arrived in the cosmos. And nothing would ever be the same, the price of survival. The Kresh return. The warning came 3 days after the Endeavor's miraculous recovery. Long-range sensors detected 15 Kresh warships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, moving in attack formation toward the human vessel. Captain Velmar immediately hailed Commander Webb. We're detecting multiple hostile contacts. Commander, you need to evacuate. The Compassion can take your entire crew. We can reach safe space before they arrive. Webb's image appeared on the view screen, and Velmar was struck by how calm he looked. Behind him, the Endeavor's bridge was a hive of controlled activity. Crew members moved with purpose, calling out status reports, preparing systems. Appreciate the offer, Captain, but we're not running, Webb said. We've been expecting this. The Kresh don't like it when their prey fights back. They're here to finish what they started. You cannot possibly fight 15 warships with a damaged vessel, Thalris protested. Commander, this is suicide. Maybe, Webb acknowledged. But here's something you should know about humans. We've been facing impossible odds since we climbed down from the trees. Sometimes we lose. But we always make the other side pay for it. He turned to someone off-screen. Battle stations. All crews to combat positions. Activate defensive grid Echo 7. Prepare firing solutions on all hostile contacts. Delmar watched in disbelief as the Endeavor transformed. Panels slid aside along its damaged hull, revealing weapon ports that had been hidden or covered during repairs. The ship rotated, presenting its least damaged side to the approaching Kresh fleet. And most remarkably, 6 smaller human vessels emerged from behind a nearby asteroid, where they had apparently been hiding. You set a trap, Delmar breathed. Of course we did, Webb replied. The Kresh are predictable. They always come back to destroy survivors. So we made ourselves look weak and waited for them to take the bait. Those 6 ships are our escort fleet. They've been preparing for this fight while the Endeavor played wounded bird. The Kresh fleet opened fire at maximum range, filling space with plasma bolts and missile salvos. The human ships scattered, moving with an agility that seemed impossible for vessels of their size. The Endeavor took hits on its forward shields, and Velmar winced, expecting the damaged ship to crumble. Instead, it fired back. The human weapons were different from anything in Thessari databases. Kinetic accelerators launched projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Missile pods rippled fire, sending hundreds of smart weapons toward the Kresh ships. And something new, energy weapons that didn't rely on plasma or lasers, but on focused electromagnetic pulses that overloaded shields and fried electronics. Impossible, Thalris whispered, watching her sensors. They're matching 15 ships with 7. Their weapons technology shouldn't be this advanced. They're a new spacefaring species. But Velmar was beginning to understand. Humanity wasn't advanced because they had peaceful centuries to develop technology. They were advanced because they had spent their entire history learning how to kill each other more efficiently. Every weapon system on those human ships represented thousands of years of refinement, driven by survival necessity. The battle was brutal and fast. Crush ships relied on overwhelming firepower and heavy armor. Human ships relied on speed, precision, and tactics that seemed to have been developed through countless battles. They didn't fight fair. They used the asteroid field for cover, concentrated fire on individual targets, and employed weapons combinations that the Kresh had never encountered. Within 20 minutes, 3 Kresh warships were disabled and drifting. 2 more had been destroyed outright. The remaining Kresh ships, apparently shocked that their prey was winning, attempted to retreat. Negative, Webb's voice cut across the communication channel. You came to our space. You attacked our ship. You killed our people. You don't get to just leave. The human escort fleet pursued, and over the next hour, Velmar watched as humanity methodically hunted down every single Kresh vessel. Not to capture them. Not to disable them. To destroy them completely. Commander, Velmar transmitted desperately, they're trying to surrender. The Kresh are signaling retreat. You've won. Webb's face was carved from stone. Captain, with respect, you don't understand what we're dealing with. The Kresh don't honor surrenders. They don't negotiate. They're a predator species that respects only strength. If we let them go, they'll bring back 50 ships next time. This needs to be a message. The last Kresh ship died in a brilliant explosion. The human fleet regrouped around the Endeavor, and only then did Velmar notice that 2 of the escort vessels were heavily damaged. One was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Status report, Webb called over the fleet channel. UESS Defiant reporting significant damage, 17 casualties. We're operational but need repairs. UESS Guardian, minor damage, 3 casualties. Combat effective. The reports continued. In total, the human fleet had lost 38 people in the battle. The Kresh had lost over 2,000. Commander Webb, Velmar said quietly, you just destroyed an entire Kresh battle group. Do you understand the implications? They will view this as an act of war. Good, Webb replied. Let them come. Let them bring their whole fleet. We'll show them what happens when they pick a fight with humanity. He paused, and his expression softened slightly. Captain, I know this is hard for your people to understand. The Thessari are peaceful. You've built a civilization on cooperation and compassion. That's admirable. But the universe isn't always kind to the peaceful. So you choose violence? Thalris asked, and Velmar heard the pain in her voice. We choose survival, Webb corrected. There's a difference. We didn't ask the Kresh to attack us. We didn't provoke them. But when they came for us, we fought back with everything we had. And we'll keep fighting until they learn to leave us alone. Velmar stared at the tactical display, at the debris field that marked 15 destroyed warships, at the damaged but victorious human fleet. He thought about the Thessari response to Kresh aggression, retreat, avoid, hide. And he wondered if humanity's approach, as brutal as it was, might actually be the more effective strategy. What happens now? He asked. Now, Webb said, we repair our ships, tend to our wounded, and prepare for the next fight. Because there's always a next fight, Captain. That's the universe we live in. He looked directly at Velmar. But we also want to talk to you. The Thessari seem like good people. We could use friends out here. Allies who understand that sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. We are not warriors, Velmar said quietly. You don't have to be, Webb replied. But maybe we can teach each other. You can show us your science, your culture, your peaceful ways. And we can show you how to defend them when the Kresh or someone like them comes calling. Over the next several days, as the human fleet conducted repairs and the Compassion provided medical assistance that the humans finally accepted, Delmar spent hours in conversation with Commander Webb and other human officers. He learned about Earth, a planet so harsh that it had forged a species capable of surviving anything. He learned about human history, an endless cycle of conflict and recovery that had ultimately driven them to the stars. And he learned about human philosophy, which held that peace was worth fighting for, that survival demanded strength, and that compassion did not mean weakness. When the time came for the Compassion to depart, Delmar found himself looking at humanity with new eyes. They were not the peaceful, enlightened species the Thessari had hoped to find. But they were something perhaps more valuable, survivors who refused to give up, fighters who protected the weak, and builders who created beauty even in the aftermath of destruction. Commander Webb, Delmar said during their final transmission, I will recommend to the Thessari Council that we establish formal relations with humanity. I believe we have much to learn from each other. Webb smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. We'd like that, Captain. And who knows? Maybe someday the Thessari won't need to run from species like the Kresh. Maybe you'll have friends who'll stand with you instead. As the Compassion jumped to hyperspace, Delmar composed his report. He knew it would shock the Council, would challenge everything the Thessari believed about civilization and progress. But he also knew it was necessary. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy. And they had brought with them a lesson the peaceful species had forgotten: sometimes survival required claws, even if you preferred to extend a hand in friendship. The galaxy would adapt to humanity's presence, or it would learn what happened when you threatened a species that had survived everything their own world could throw at them. Either way, nothing would ever be the same,